Aloha cupcakes. Today I'm going to do a little bit of some really janky version of palleting because I'm going to use some pages out of a Uline magazine and a green wrap Mack that apparently is a touch-up brush and not a pinstriping brush. And then apparently you can only do straight lines with it. I disagree. I think we're going to try a couple other things with it. First thing is I got this cool little palette clipboardy thing, so the pages stick to it. And let me find the thing because we're going to trim this brush a little bit. This one's brand new, kind of. I think it may have been used for something, but I've never trimmed it at all. And I know trimming the brush sounds like it's super complicated. All you do is you take this fancy little thing here, which is not a medical grade scalpel. It is. It's a disposable one. But all I'm going to do is I'm going to shape the brush until I can see whatever the little frayed ends at the very tip of the brush are. Well, it's a little greasy, so I should probably clean it first. So, I missed a step. Get some reducer handy. Some form of reducer, mineral spirits, whatever it is that you use. Just, it cleans the oil off of the brush so that you can actually do this without it being greasy. As much fun as getting grease on the blade and maybe not trimming correctly it is. Kind of a disaster. But I use 2 different cups when I'm painting, so here. One of them is actually to use as a reducer. The other one I use it to clean out the brush when I'm done, or when I want to change colors, or whatever I clean the brush for. Anyway, let's get the oil off this thing. Super fancy process. You dip it, let it sit, rinse it out, grab a rag. I know, totally complex stuff, right? Super difficult. But when you're doing this, I don't put a lot of pressure on there, just a little bit, just to squeegee it off, because I want those brush hairs to be dry before I do this. And that's so that the loose hairs will fray out just a little bit extra. Like right there. I'm starting to be able to see them. And then when I lay it out, just put my finger on there just so I can see where the 1 or 2 that I need to trim off are. And it really only should be a couple. If you're trimming off like 20 or 30 hairs at the tip of your brush, that's too much. Like you really should have a good enough brush that you're only trimming 1 or 2 at most. And I realized that the camera's at an angle where you couldn't possibly see it, because I couldn't possibly see it. I have a magnifying glass above me, so I can see these things. But whatever. So I give it another rinse just to make sure that we've got all the oil out of it, because as much as I love getting oil in the paint and having that weird bubbly thing when you pull lines, no, I hate that. That's absolutely the worst. So, get the paint, shake it, twist it, do whatever you gotta do, get it all wiggly and gooey. I do like that Alpha 6 puts those little marbles in there, so when you shake it, one, it just makes a fun noise, but it actually agitates the paint so that all the binders and everything get mixed up. Like, I think that's very useful. Mostly because I've been dropping ball bearings in a cans of One Shot for an eternity, and this is already done. But when you go to palette, and this is the important part of this, and I know we're 3 minutes in and I'm just getting to the important part. When you palette, all you're really doing is dragging the paint out. And when you're looking at the paint, what you're looking for is one, coverage on the brush. You want to make sure you have all of your brushable surfaces that you're going to paint with covered in paint. And you want to make sure that you don't have like bubbles and clumps and just junk in it. And if you go on your own palette like this, like just brush it out like this until you're able to get the consistency that you learn over time how it feels. So you get an idea to what degree of consistency it takes before you're going to pull a good line. It's like, I think I'm pretty close right here. So let's give it a shot. And then I get to sort myself out. Now, I was told this thing is only good for doing straight lines. So far, it does straight lines. Imagine that, a pinstriping brush that can do straight lines. I know, it sounds magical. Also, I'm realizing that this lens has a fisheye on it. It looks weird. Yeah, I have 2 different cameras that I film these things with. One's an actual good camera, and then the other one's like a Insta360, like the little dinky one. Now, just for reference, I do palette between lines, especially if it was a longer line like this. Because, one, I don't think that this board is actually treated or painted. I just grabbed one. It's white. I was like, it's probably fine. It's really not, though. And two, I kind of like the idea of having consistency, not so much in the paint, but so that the tip of the brush is shaped the same every time I pull a brush. So that way, every time I pull a stripe, because I can talk. But the idea is that I will have at least the brush uniform every time I go to pull a line. So hopefully the lines look uniform as well. At least that's my plan. Sometimes that works. Most of the time it works. Sometimes not so much. I have my off days. So after each one of these strokes, I tend to palette and then repalette if I see a bubble. Just remember, start seeing things like bubbles and things like that. It's not the end of the universe. Just palette out a little bit more, and it should clear up eventually. You don't have to go adding chemicals to it. Your reducers are probably going to be necessary at some point or another, but try paletting first. It's so much quicker. Then you don't have to, sort out what chemicals work with what. I mean, unless that's what you want to do, then hey, learn your chemicals. I used to use Smoothie in the old one shot back when mineral spirits worked over reducers. That stuff used to work pretty well, I think. Flattening paste was the opposite. But nowadays, I don't even bother with it anymore. Just take paint straight out of the can. And so long as I have a reducer available, I don't typically have to do too terribly much. And I just trust my skills. Which also, if you're watching right now and seeing what I'm doing, maybe I shouldn't really trust them so much. But, I don't have anybody to trust over me, so I guess I have to just go for it. Oh, remember when I said that you could only do straight lines? That's what I was told with this thing. Well, it seems that if I hold the brush upright, like I would a scrolling brush, I'm able to pull these magical things called curves. Huh, that's weird. I was told very specifically, several people, that what they were always taught was that it was a straight lining only brush or a touch up brush or whatever garbage terminology. But I suppose anybody with the proper degree of brush skills should be able to make this brush pull a decent curve. So imagine that. Huh, who would have known that? Oh, right, me. I know better. Like, I could do this with garbage brushes from Michael's. Maybe not those little styrofoam brick little brushes, but still I can do this with other brushes. It's all in how you handle it and how well you know the lines you're capable of pulling. It's weird. Except for, like, sometimes I do the corner. See that right there? Well, so this one doesn't exactly have my favorite tip. But then again, like, I've managed to go for a couple decades without using this brush ever, so I've no idea. I also don't dislike it. It's got a little bit of rigidity to it, so it does have a weird kind of feel when you pull these turns. But if you go slow enough, it's fine. Like, I don't know that I'm going to go and buy more of these brushes, but, I mean, it works pretty well. I mean, who knows? Maybe I'll just hang on to it and keep using it just because people keep telling me I can't do it. Then it just becomes my main brush, which is exactly how the Mack 1 became my main brush, because everyone told me that was a garbage brush. I was like, well, that's cool. I have 4 of them. I don't have 4 anymore. I only have 3 now. But look, those are curves. They just seem to be flowing. I don't get it. It's almost like those people were wrong. I actually kind of like this curve right here, and I don't know what it was. It was just, this one was fun for me. And I know it's a little weird that I actually rate an individual line over all of the other lines in a given painting, but this particular one, just the way that it pulled into that corner, where you see me lifting up the brush just a tiny bit, pulling it to the end, it was fun. And maybe that's silly, but if I don't enjoy doing this, I wouldn't do this. I think that's just as important as the actual quality of my work. Well, maybe to me it is. I don't know. Probably normal people are like, no, your work's more important than what you're doing. So, yeah, whatever. Because, like, this one almost was, like, stressful. Right there. I was like, eh. So I didn't like that one as much. But then this line, This is another one that I liked. Right there, you see how that it makes contact and it was fluid going through? Because a lot of times, especially when I'm like at the tail end of where I start needing to reduce things, doesn't work. But there, curves, straight lines, does both. I don't know what they're calling a touch-up brush, but I mean that's I guess. Oh yeah, back to this whole cleaning thing. So I'm flipping this around because I don't want to flip. I don't know. Actually, I thought that the camera would be able to see it better, and it's not. But here, all we do is we just wiggle it. Just put it in the reducer, just wiggle it, and then wiggle it some more and drag it up the side of the cup a little bit. This will get most of the paint off. Because as much as I love destroying all of the rags around my shop, this is a little less messy. Because watch. Now I put a little bit of pressure, but not a lot. And then what we have is a... Okay, almost. There's still blue gum with it. So, more wiggle. It's important to wiggle your brush for everyone. They have to be able to see it. There. That's a little, well, still blue. Yeah, whatever. It's a cheap brush. Who cares? No, actually, that worked. Give it a little more, but I think we're probably pretty clean here. Yeah, it's good enough. Just get it all dry. And remember, I'm not putting pressure on this necessarily. It should be just a little dab on both sides with the rag. Don't squeeze it or you're going to start pulling hairs out. It's like plucking eyebrows. And then when you're done with that, when you're comfortable with it, put some oil on it. I don't care what oil you use. You use motor oil. If it's got no detergent in it, this is 3-in-1, I think it is. But what you do with it is you make sure that you get oil in between all of the little hairs. So that way it can shape correctly because you want it to actually go back to that pointy, sharp looking thing because this is how you want it to look when you go to store it. Right? Like right there. Kind of. That's a little closer. There. That's it. And now I'm just going to walk away. Stay moist, my friends.